I'll be taking up this particular topic. The reason for me to take up this topic is because there was a report recently which was about the groundwater, and the groundwater was also very extensively discussed in your economic survey this year. Did anyone get a chance to read the economic survey or the highlights of economic survey? Did you get a chance? There was a separate portion dedicated to groundwater. What are the groundwater resources of India? What are the major pollutants of groundwater resources and which areas? Now, whenever it comes to arsenic pollution, the states which used to come to my mind used to be Rajasthan, Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, interiors of Karnataka. Reason being, I find arsenic pollution generally in the arid, semi-arid areas. Even if you look at the NCRTs, the small case studies which they give in the boxes are from these states. Did you happen to notice that? But according to this latest report, arsenic has been confirmed to contaminate the food chain. Now it has entered the food chain, especially rice, wheat, and potato. All right. So arsenic, first of all, arsenic is a contaminant. Arsenic is a pollutant. Arsenic is toxic in nature. It undergoes bioaccumulation in a body. What do you understand by bioaccumulation? What is bioaccumulation? First, what is bioaccumulation? Second is, what are the requirements? It stays for a very long time, very good, Abhinav. And second is, also, does bioaccumulation happens when small quantities add up over the time, creating a bigger quantity inside a body. So if, let's say, 10 grams or 10 milligrams of, let's say, arsenic is stored in a person's body in a month, over the time it accumulates. Now in order to for any contaminant to accumulate inside the body, it has to be stored in fats. Gradual accumulation of chemicals, pesticides over the time. Very good. If any pollutant is water soluble, can it undergo accumulation? If it is water soluble, it will not go accumulation. In fact, it will be released from your body. But if it is fat soluble, fats are the last organic compounds which are burnt or which are used by the body. All right. So fats are your last organic compounds which are used by your body. So it stays in the body for a very long time. Now, keeping this aside, was this property of storage of pollutants in the fats was responsible for milk and milk products being rejected by UK from India? The milk and milk products were rejected by United Kingdom and European Union, which were sourced from India. Why? Because there were chemicals which were found. Are milk and milk products nothing but fats? They have a substantial proportion of fats in them. So also one of the major reason why the poultry, why the fish, why the meat, why the milk product industry or the export industry is also suffering from bioaccumulation and underground as well as overall pollution. When it comes to pollution in food chain, is this because the storage of pollutants in the fats. So now it has been found that arsenic is a part of our food chain, especially through rice, wheat, and potato. Now, the countries that have high levels of arsenic containing groundwater include USA, India, China, and Mexico. In India, it is Assam, Bihar, West Bengal, Punjab, and Uttar Pradesh. These are the alluvial plains. Aren't these exactly agriculture intensive alluvial plains, Ganga Brahmaputra river system area? So I have unsustainable agricultural practices in all of these states which are highly agricultural intensive. These are Assam, Bihar, West Bengal, Punjab, and UP, which have been found to have highest groundwater arsenic contamination. So first of all, what is the biggest concern when it comes to arsenic pollution? First of all, arsenic is a cancer-causing pollutant. It is a cancer-causing pollutant. It does not have any taste or odor, so it is extremely difficult to detect. It is very poisonous for the human beings, and now it is coming both naturally as well as from the man-made products. What are exactly the sources? Thermal power plant is a by default source. So fly ash from the thermal power plants. When I say coal is the biggest polluter, coal is the biggest polluter. Coal is not just a biggest polluter of air, but it is a biggest polluter when it comes to soil degradation. It is one of the biggest polluters when it comes to water degradation, when it comes to underwater degradation as well. So my fly ash coming from the industrial, from the thermal power plants is one of the major sources of arsenic pollution. Then ore extraction or metal extraction. So whenever I have metal extractions from ores, this also leads to my arsenic pollution. So what are the different ores which are associated with arsenic pollution? It is copper, iron and silver ores, and also by the fossil fuel burning, then from fertilizer plants, from fly ash, from industrialization, from thermal power plants. These are the major sources. What are the basic properties? It is carcinogen. What do I understand by carcinogen? Carcinogen means it is cancer causing. It is cancer causing. It is cancer causing. It is extremely poisonous. It does not have a taste or odor. It occurs both naturally as well as in the man-made form. All right. Now, what are the harmful effects when it comes to arsenic poisoning? Can you tell me? Arsenic is something you have been reading in NCERT since your school time, right? Arsenic poisoning or arsenic contamination is not new. Lead contamination is not new. Mercury is not new. Do you remember Minamata disease? Minamata disease, right? That is by mercury contamination, right? Lead contamination leads to blood disorders. So what is arsenic contamination? First of all, water resources. The industries were polluting the water resources with the effluents mercury. We can recall it. Arsenic is also, why are we doing arsenic so extensively? Because one, government of India is doing a lot of extensive work when it comes to groundwater. Chennai has run out of groundwater, right? Yes, cancer and skin problems. Just keep an eye, whether you're from geography optional or a GS student, expect a question on groundwater resource from India. I'll tell you the reason why. You got this report on arsenic groundwater pollution. In your economic survey, you have a separate chapter which has a portion related to groundwater. It has got a substantial portion within that chapter. Then you have created a map. You have created a map on groundwater. You have created a map of glacial lakes. Now the government of India is very much concerned when it comes to drinking water resources. Your major cities have run out of drinking water. Example, Chennai, Bangalore. Delhi is said to be on the verge of running out of drinking water, and within 10 years, within a decade, Delhi will also not have any groundwater. In fact, currently also it is illegal in Delhi to have the submersible motor. You cannot have your own motor in Delhi, right? So you're not allowed to extract groundwater. Likewise, with the glaciers depleting, I'm having a major concern of drinking water. So we have identified, now coming to the issue. So Hima has very rightly pointed out, we have skin cancer, we have skin issues which are related to the arsenic poisoning. You have genetic mutation also, which is related to arsenic poisoning. You have problems in the lower limbs to the tune that it needs to amputate. The limbs become darker in the shade and needs to be amputated, and it can also create genetic disorders in the younger children and the coming of generations. So about arsenic poisoning, it is the consumption of arsenic polluted water. So again, is it part of water pollution? All right. So it is part of the water pollution and the accumulation. What is accumulation? The bioaccumulation of arsenic in blood, nails, hair. It causes lesions, rough skin, dryness, thickening of the skin, and ultimately skin cancer. Chronic exposure, that is back-to-back exposure, can cause black foot disease. Which is basically a disease which hampers the lower limbs. They are severely damaged and can cause gangrene, and ultimately you have to cut that part of the limb. Using arsenic contaminated water for agriculture can lead to increased concentration in fruits, grains, and it becomes part of the food chain. Apart from this, the chronic arsenic poisoning causes melanosis and keratosis. What is it? Melanosis stands for dark spots on the upper chest, back, and arms. And the next stage is keratosis, in which the palms become hard. The skin becomes permanently hard. There was a district in Andhra Pradesh. In which more than 60% of the population was suffering from melanosis, and substantial population was also suffering from keratosis. Kurnool is very good, the area. Now, long-term exposure can also lead to loss of appetite, weight gain, gastrointestinal disturbance, and cancer. Now, coming to the solution. The solution is, can we do bioremediation of arsenic? So yes, what is bioremediation? Before looking at the solution, what is bioremediation? What is bioremediation? Remedy is finding a solution. Bio is biotic. So when you use biotic factors to find a solution to any pollution or find a solution to any issue which is causing pollution, bioremediation is used for pollution only. So whenever you find any natural entity which can help in the remedy of pollution, it is called bioremediation. Here you can use microorganisms such as bacteria, fungi, etc., microalgae, etc. So here I've got two bacteria which I can use. So basically, even if I don't remember their name, I can remember that I can use bacteria by the name Bacillus flexus as Acinetobacter juni and Bacillus flexus. I don't expect you to remember their name, but at least remember bacteria. I have used bacteria here for the removal of arsenic from soil, which is it shows resistance towards arsenate and juni towards the arsenide. These are the two components in which the arsenic occurs in the different soil, water, etc., which causes pollution. Both the bacteria have a special gene which aids in detoxification. Along with that, bleaching powder and alum are also used for removal of arsenic. So, see, more than teaching the topic, I believe in teaching the approach to the students. How I came to a conclusion I need to teach so much about arsenic. Why? Because there was a national report on arsenic contamination. Then I had an observation that Government of India is doing a lot when it comes to groundwater in terms of governance, assessment, awareness, etc. You would have seen those advertisements in which government is saying that if a hand pump has been painted red, do not use water from that hand pump because the water is probably not fit for drinking. So that is also an awareness towards the groundwater pollution. So that observation, along with a report that came out, let's say arsenic or any pollutant. So what is my approach? My approach will be, first of all, what are the areas? We started with this, the alluvial plains, right? We started with the Ganga Brahmaputra alluvial plains. Then what are the sources of the pollutant? What are the effects? on health, environment, agriculture, whatever. Different pollutants will have different effects. Next is, what is the remedy? All right. Whenever there is any pollutant, when it comes to environment, if anything is in news or the government is doing extensive work when it comes to combating that particular pollutant, your job is to study it under these four areas. Let's say this is arsenic. Tomorrow you have, let's say, a report on lead pollution. You have a report on lead pollution. Again, you have to divide lead pollution in this form. That is, what are the areas in India which are having lead pollution? What are the sources of lead pollution? What are the effects? What is the remedy? Then you will be done. If you only read the highlights of the report, then you have to see that in UPSC, they generally ask you questions based on current affairs, but from the basic. So this is a question based on current affairs if this is asked, but from the basics. Now coming to another initiative which is called as Blue Carbon Initiative. Blue Carbon Initiative, how many of you have heard of it? How many of you have heard of the Blue Carbon Initiative? How many of us understand carbon sequestration? How many of you understand carbon sequestration? So blue carbon is nothing but the carbon sequestration which is done by the oceans and the coastal ecosystem. Hence blue carbon. Make sense? Now give me why Sundarbans would be chosen. Why? You have so many wetlands, you have so many ecotone regions, you have a Bay of Bengal and an Arabian Sea. Why do you think Sundarbans would be chosen for Blue Carbon Initiative? So, Blue Carbon Initiative, again, not a very big deal. Do we know that the carbon sequestration or fixing of carbon or absorption of carbon by the oceans is done by the microalgae, phytoplanktons, mangroves, etc.? Do we know this or not? It is the phytoplanktons, the microalgae and the mangroves which do the carbon sequestration. So very quickly keep writing also so that we can cover more topics. India's Sundarbans National Park is among the 5 sites that have the highest blue carbon stocks globally. So in India, the highest blue carbon stock is by Sundarbans. So blue carbon is the carbon sequestration method, which is the removal of carbon dioxide from the Earth's atmosphere by the world's oceans and coastal ecosystem, mostly by the algae, sea grasses, mangroves, salt marshes, etc. So this initiative, simply write about it. This initiative is led by these 3 organizations: Conservation International, IUCN, and Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission. It is initiative to mitigate climate change. That's it. I should know the name of the initiative, which is Blue Carbon, and because Sundarbans are in news, I need to know the initiative. Again, a topic which is extremely important, which is carbon mineralization. What is mineralization? What is carbon mineralization? Mineralization in general, what do decomposers do? What is the role of decomposers? Decomposers break down organic material into their basic elements, yes or no? Basic elements, and then supply them back to the soil, which adds the fertility of the soil. So basically it will, suppose a tiger has died, it will break down tiger into carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, hydrogen, zinc, manganese, iron, calcium, phosphorus, whatever is present in the iron in the lion, and it will be given to the soil. Is that what is mineralization? Right? In carbon mineralization, what am I doing? I am basically doing the decomposition of chemical compounds in organic matter, by which the nutrients in these compounds are released in soluble inorganic forms, which can be made available to plants. Carbon mineralization, I will repeat what is happening. I am decomposing the chemical compounds in the organic matter. Organic matter can be plants, animals, any species. So I am decomposing them. All right. Now I have got the nutrients, and these nutrients are in the soluble inorganic form. And it can be made available to plants as fertilizers. Do we understand what is sequestration? Carbon sequestration, which is capture which is capture and storage of carbon. One way of carbon sequestration is by plants. What do? They capture carbon and convert it into glucose or carbohydrates. That is what photosynthesis is. That is what photosynthesis is. Can you do carbon sequestration? Can you do carbon sequestration outside nature? Outside nature. It is as simple as you literally capture carbon dioxide and push it underground or push it into the fields where they are stored. It literally, you are sealing carbon dioxide, let's say in a underground mine, in some extensive area or under the sea level, etc. That system is also called as carbon capture and storage, also called as CCS, which is carbon capture and storage. So a CCS chain consists of three parts: capturing the carbon dioxide, transporting the carbon dioxide, and securely storing the carbon dioxide. Where do I store them? In the depleted oil gas fields, which are underground, deep saline aquifers, etc. So I want you to simply follow. I won't be standing there because otherwise I'll be covering the screen. But this is a brief history of the UN-based conventions. As we know that COP26 was extremely important, and for that I should have a brief history, which is how it all started. So please go through this. Is it clear? Is it properly visible to everyone? Is the screen properly visible? All right. So let us take it from the top. The first international convention which happened was UNCED, which is United Nations Convention on Human Environment, Stockholm Conference. Just remember it by Stockholm Conference. UNCED, which is called as the Rio Summit, is believed to be the first convention, 1992, which is believed to be the first convention where everybody signed the pacts. But the real convention where everyone sat and decided that we have to do something, we have to take steps, was the Stockholm Conference in the year 1972, the first international convention. So the Stockholm Conference 1972 brought the entire world together and made it a point that we need to make sure that the environment is extremely important. You have Wildlife Protection Act. Can you tell me the year of that? Wildlife Protection Act. 1972. Your Wildlife Protection Act is actually the outcome of Stockholm Conference. Your then Prime Minister Indira Gandhi had visited this conference, and as a result, she implemented the Wildlife Protection Act in India in the year 1972. Now, what are the major outcome of 1972 conference? It was the United Nations Environment Program. Is it still one of the biggest environment program of the world? Is it still one of the biggest environment program? This was the outcome of Stockholm Conference, along with a World Meteorological Organization, and these organizations together created a scientific panel called as IPCC, which is Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, in the year 1988. So IPCC is much beyond the first UNFCCC. Much beyond UNFCCC was formed, the IPCC panel was created. What is IPCC panel? IPCC panel is an intergovernmental panel in which the governments, the NGOs, the important organization, companies, etc., they come together with their scientific studies to quantify the effect of climate change on Earth. So IPCC is a scientific body in which the governments, the NGOs, different organizations, non-profit organization, etc., they come together to make a scientific assessment of climate change on Earth. And then finally, in the year 1992, I had the Earth Summit. The Earth Summit, which is UNCED, United Nations Conference on Environment and Development. Now, the major outcome of Earth Summit can be remembered by three conventions, three documents and one finance arm. 3 conventions, 3 documents, and 1 finance arms. What were the 3 conventions which were the offshoot of Earth Summit or the Rio Summit? Was UNFCCC, which is your United Nations Framework Conference on Climate Change. Your COP26 was nothing but the meeting of UNFCCC. This was related to climate change. So UNFCCC, the first convention was for climate change. Then came the second convention, which is for desertification, land degradation. So I had second convention, which is United Nations Convention for combating desertification, and third for biodiversity, which is United Nations Convention for biodiversity. These are so far also the biggest conventions of their respective field. When it comes to climate change, the apex body still remains UNFCCC, for land degradation UNCCD, and for biodiversity UNCBD, which is for conservation of biodiversity. Three documents which were the outcome of the Rio Summit were Rio Declaration. Now in Rio Declaration, I, for the first time, got the entire world to sign 27 principles. For the first time, got the world to sign 27 principles for future sustainable development. For future sustainable development, I gave the principle of precaution, also called as precautionary principle, and most importantly, the polluter pays principle. Is it not the principle on which the entire climate talks or entire climate conferences are based on? Even your environmental impact assessment is based on polluter pays. Whoever is polluting will have to pay the price. True or false? So this was the first document where the polluter pays principle, also called as PPP, was signed. Next was Agenda 21. Again, multiple times you find questions on Agenda 21. 21 stands for 21st century. 21st century. So it basically talks about the ways to have sustainable development in the 21st century. And the third document was the Forest Principle, which talked about the conservation as well as sustainable management of the forest. So these are the 3 documents. I signed 3 documents. I created 3 conventions. Now coming to the first convention, very important, carbon credit is based on polluter principle of polluter pays. Then you have even the corporate social responsibility. Don't you think even the corporate social responsibility has its root that when you're taking from the society, you have to give it back to the society, because you're not just taking the resources, you're polluting the society too. Think about it. So polluter pays principle is not just related to climate change. It has multiple dimensions, especially in handling corporates. Therefore, it basically is that when you create, where do corporates get their money from? They basically extract it from one way or the other from the society. And don't you think when somebody takes something from the society, the others are deprived of it? Ultimately, if society has 100 units of resources and somebody has extracted 10 units of it, that means that others are deprived of the 10 units. So you have to do a payback in one way or the other. All right. Anyways, in UNFCCC, we were concerned about stabilizing the greenhouse gas concentrations. So for the first time, in which year? 1992, it was realized that greenhouse gases needs to be stabilized. In this, the important conventions are the 1997 Kyoto Protocol, 2007 Bali Action Plan, 10 Green Climate Fund, 15 Paris Agreement, and now 2021, which is Glasgow. We have done Glasgow extensively. All right. So in Kyoto Protocol, we have revised it yesterday also. I got CDM, I got GI, I got emission trading. Bali Action Plan talks about RE and RE plus, this is related to deforestation. This is related to deforestation. So Bali Action Plan is related to deforestation. 2010 Green Climate Fund. Did I tell you that in 2009, yesterday I would have mentioned, in 2009 it was decided that the developed countries will give $100 billion every year. Did I mention that yesterday? So do you see the timing of Green Climate Fund? This Green Climate Fund was for those $100 billion, or basically a climate fund in which the resources will be pooled in order to find methodologies and ways to combat climate change. Then of course in Paris Agreement, it was agreed that we need to limit the average temperature maximum to by 2 degrees Celsius by 2100, if possible by 1.5 degree Celsius. We have done a quick revision of UNFCCC. Quick revision. These are the protocols you need to remember. Do not even think of trying to memorize all the protocols. You will be able to find the answer by elimination if you remember these 5, which is Kyoto, Bali, Green Climate Fund, Paris Agreement, Glasgow. Now coming to the next protocol, which is UNCCD. UNCCD is for combating desertification. My major area of concern was Sahel and Savannah. In fact, Sahel has one of the highest population of malnourished children and women. Sahel has one of the most poverty-stricken population. Sahel has one of the most agriculturally deteriorated ecosystems. So why did I create this convention? I created this convention to combat desertification. India has also hosted this convention, which was in the year 2019, which was COP 14. The first was in 97. Basically, you don't have to remember anything from UNCCD. You simply have to remember the initiatives taken by India for combating land degradation. UNCCD was asked when India hosted the 14th convention. All right. Convention on Biodiversity. Fair and equitable sharing of benefits arising from genetic resources and utilization, proper sustainable utilization of biodiversity. These are the two major principles. These are the two major principles for UNCBD. There are major protocols, one Cartagena, another Nagoya. Do you see these in your papers? Do you see these in your papers repeatedly? These are not new. This is not current. But this is the basic structure. If I remember the basic structure, elimination becomes extremely important. I have created Cartagena Protocol. Cartagena Protocol, just remember GM crops. Whenever there is any question on GM crops, internationally, which convention is there? Cartagena Protocol. In India, which is the committee? GEAC. Do we know this? If I want to get any GM crop approved in India, I need to get the approval of GEAC. Internationally, which is the protocol? Cartagena. More than enough. All right. So basically, what does Cartagena Protocol talk about? Cartagena Protocol talk about protection of biodiversity from the risk posed by the genetically modified organisms. Then I have Nagoya. Nagoya says that everybody should have a fair access to genetic resources and fair and equitable sharing of the benefits. Fair and equitable sharing of the benefits. Then you have, in the Nagoya, you have a supplementary protocol called as Kuala Lumpur within Nagoya, which basically talks about liability and redresses to the Cartagena Protocol of biosafety, and this is related to, you don't have to remember all of this, this is related to living modified organism. This, if you want, you can take a screenshot. For your own reading. You can take a screenshot. I'll zoom each section about the different bodies. I have taken it directly from the UN sites, so you can use it as such. When is Green Climate Fund created? 2010. When is Global Environment Facility created? 1992. 1992. Do not get confused there. Do not get confused there. Now coming to three other conventions, which are the Basel, the Rotterdam and the Stockholm Convention. Please first take the screenshot of this. We can't afford to write everything, so please take the screenshot of this. I am teaching you Stockholm Convention, Rotterdam and Basel Convention only because Stockholm Convention was in news. And why Stockholm Convention was in news? Because one of the persistent organic pollutant was in news. So if any persistent organic pollutant was in news and is a cause of concern, I need to know which international organization makes the rule for the trade and the transfer. So since this is important, the other two conventions we'll be doing. Now very quickly, just remember the Basel Convention. Can you tell me the country where I have Basel? The Basel Convention is for e-waste plus plastic. All right. Now, it is for e-waste and plastic. Do you come across the news that the developed countries ship their shipments and cargoes full of e-waste and plastic to developing and poor countries for disposal in the developing and poor countries, right? So basically, this convention was to stop that. This convention was to stop that. You cannot transfer hazardous waste from developed to less developed countries. Will you remember this? E-waste plastic from rich to poor. In fact, India was one of the very famous destination when it comes to this. Next is Rotterdam. Rotterdam is for pesticides and chemicals in international trade. Pesticides and chemicals in international trade. Yes, very recently, that is what I'm saying. India was one of the importer of hazardous waste, plastic waste. Anyways, but now we have actually recycled almost all of the plastic. I think one student only told me in the class. Now coming to Rotterdam, you need a prior consent for trade and transfer of certain chemicals and pesticides. And third is your Stockholm Convention. Stockholm Convention is for persistent organic pollutants. Can somebody very quickly tell me what are the persistent organic pollutants? Name of these pollutants are extremely important. Name of all of these pollutants are extremely important. I know they are too big to remember, but you have to remember because they are recently being banned by India. Now, what is POPs or persistent organic pollutants? One of the most common persistent organic pollutant is DDT, benzene. We are actually reading this because benzene pollution is in news. Why benzene pollution is in news? Because of styrene gas. Where did styrene gas remains for a very long time? Resistance to environmental degradation, extremely good. It does not get degraded very fast. Styrene gas कहाँ पे leak हुई थी? Styrene gas leakage, which led to death and respiratory issues to a lot of population. Vishakhapatnam in Vizag, Andhra Pradesh, Vishakhapatnam, I had styrene gas leak. What is styrene? Styrene is a form of benzene. What is benzene? Benzene is a type of volatile organic pollutant which results in the formation of pollutant, persistent organic pollutant also in different types of variations. Where do I use benzene or styrene? For making plastics, for making high grade plastics such as for microwave oven, etc. So for making plastic, I need these two elements, but it is also extremely hazardous to humans. What is the convention? What is the convention which is used for their control? It is Stockholm. Chaliye, coming to another very important topic, which is Ramsar. Do you expect a question on Ramsar this year? Is India, very good, is India bang on getting new sites every year? Every year, 2020, in 2020, I had 4 to 5 sites. In 2021, again, I had 4 sites. In 2022, I have 2 sites. So continuously, I'm getting new sites in the list of Ramsar Convention. Let us first look at the list. How many sites are there in India which are now part of Ramsar Convention? I have 49. I have 49 sites. The two new are Khejadia Wildlife Sanctuary of Gujarat and Bakhira Wildlife Sanctuary in Uttar Pradesh. Uttar Pradesh in last 2 years have gained Ramsar sites. Earlier, Uttar Pradesh did not have Ramsar sites. So you have Khejadia in Gujarat and Bakhira Wildlife Sanctuary in Uttar Pradesh. In 2021 December, I had another wetland site from Uttar Pradesh, which is Hyderapur. Hyderapur Wetland site. Hyderapur Wetland site. Now, in the August of 2021, I had these four sites which were added. I had Sultanpur National Park from Gurugram, Haryana. Then again from Haryana, I had Bhindawas Wildlife Sanctuary, Jhajjar. I had Thol Lake Wildlife Sanctuary, again from Gujarat, and Vadhavan from Vadodara, Gujarat. So in last 1.5 years, that is the time you have to prepare your current affairs for. So in 1.5 years, I have got 3 sites from Gujarat which have been added, 2 sites from Uttar Pradesh which have been added, and I've got 2 sites from Haryana which have recently been added. I will give you a little details on these sites which are recently been added, but you have to mark state-wise. Since Abhinav has mentioned, you also state-wise mention how many Ramsar wetland sites are there in each state. Will you do that? Will you do that? I'll give you the details for the recently added, but you have to make the list of the total number of Ramsar sites across India. All right. Now, coming to the first one, which is my Hyderapur wetland. If you can remember, just remember, otherwise you can let it go. It is in the Muzaffarnagar Bijnor border between Ganga and Solani River. Very important. Ganga and Solani River. It is part of the Hastinapur Wildlife Sanctuary. Again important. So mark that, it might have mixed up. So mark all the important sites which are in each state. Then you have Hyderpur wetland, which is a man-made lake. It was formed in the year 1984, and it gets exotic birds which come from the hills of Mongolia. It comes from the hills of Mongolia. Coming to Sultanpur National Park, Haryana. Sultanpur National Park, Haryana. It supports 220 species. Keep on writing also. It supports 220 species of resident, winter migratory, and local migratory water birds. Very important, more than 10 of these are globally threatened, including sociable lapwing, endangered Egyptian vulture, very important. Endangered Egyptian vulture, very important. Saker falcon, Pallas fish eagle, and black-bellied tern. Then I have Thol Lake Wildlife Sanctuary in Gujarat, which is part of the Central Asian Flyway. It supports 30 threatened waterbird species. 30 threatened waterbird species, including white-rumped vulture, sociable lapwing, Sarus crane, common pochard, and lesser white-fronted goose. Then I have Vadhavan wetland. Then you have Vadhavan wetland in Gujarat. Again, part of the Central Asian Flyway. The important endangered fishes or threatened fishes, birds here are Pallas fish eagle, common pochard, Dalmatian pelican, grey-headed fish eagle. Then I have Vindavas Wildlife Sanctuary. It is the largest wetland in Haryana, is home to more than 10 globally threatened species, including Egyptian vulture, steppe eagle, Pallas fish eagle, and black-bellied tern. And then, now, if you want, you can mention these also. These are from the year, you can take the screenshot of this. These are from the year 2020. So safe side, if you want, you can take these also. But otherwise, if you know the sites which are added in the year 2021 and 22, more than enough. All right. So I have taken this slide. I have taken this slide only for this portion, which is what does the Ramsar tag mean? I've taken it from the newspaper. What does basically this tag mean, and what are the bases on which the tag is given? All right. So since Ramsar point is important when it comes to news, let us completely understand this topic. So this tag means that, please keep on writing also, this tag means that these are the wetlands of international importance that have been designated under the Ramsar Convention on Wetlands. What is the basis on which you give this tag? The site needs to meet one or more of the following criteria. It should contain, represent a rare example of wetland. It should have a rare example of wetland. It should support vulnerable and endangered species. It should support vulnerable and endangered species, and it should support species which are important for biological diversity. For example, the mangroves of Sundarbans. For example, the coral reefs of Andaman region, etc. The upper wetlands of Ganga. The upper wetlands of Ganga is also extremely important for biological diversity. Then I have support species at a critical stage. For example, if they are there to lay their eggs, if they are there for, let's say, in the season where they have mating, etc. So at that critical stage, that wetland should support that species. It should support, very important, more than 20,000 or more water birds. It should support. Now, this point is extremely important. 1% population of one of the water bird species. It should support indigenous fish species, important fish food source for the fish, and 1% of the wetland dependent animal species. So out of this, what I have to remember is this point, and this point. These are the three criteria which are needed to declare any site or any wetland as a wetland, Ramsar wetland site. Now, what changes does it bring? It gives a legal protection and provides guidelines for the management of the site. Can I move on to the next slide? All right. So very quickly, you can simply take a screenshot of it. It is more of a revision. What is Ramsar Convention? I'll stay on this side. What is Ramsar Convention? Came into the force in the year 1975. We all know that. What is the motive of giving this convention? That the conservation should be the wise use of the wetland, and the total national and international actions should contribute to the sustainable development of that wetland. For the first time, you had an international convention for a specialized ecosystem. For a specialized ecosystem, you had only one such convention, which is my Ramsar. And these are all the areas or all the different types of ecosystems which can be part of the wetlands, which can be covered under the Ramsar Convention. It can be lakes, rivers, swamps, marshes, grasslands, peatlands, oases, estuaries, deltas, tidal flats, nearshore marine areas, mangroves, coral reefs, human-made sites such as fish ponds, rice paddies, reservoirs, as well as salt pans. Now, coming to another important part, which is of Ramsar, which is Montauk's record. Again, simply take a screenshot of this, then we'll quickly revise. So what is Montauk's record? Montauk's record is that record of the wetland sites which are undergoing the health of an ecosystem, which is undergoing stress. So Montauk's record is that record in which you list these Ramsar sites which are going under stress. There are two sites which were part of the Montauk's record. One was my Loktak Lake. Chilka Lake was also part of the Montauk's record, but now it is not so. But Loktak Lake and Kuladivo National Park still managed to be part, being concerned. What are the main issues of Loktak Lake? Do we know about Loktak Lake of Manipur? Multiple times asked in your exam. One location which can be asked any day. Examiner absolutely loves the Manipur Lake, right? It is the floating lake. Very quickly, floating lake. Fumdis are the specialized type of vegetation in this region. Then What is the deer? Sangai, also called as dancing deer, also called as brow antlered, brow antlered. All right. Then what else? What else about it? What else about it? What is the reason? What is the reason for this region? What is the reason for this region to undergo deterioration? The reason is the catchment area. One, water hyacinth, invasive alien species. Water hyacinth, also called as the, what is the other name for water hyacinth? Is it also called as the terror of Bengal? So water hyacinth has actually made the water extremely toxic. It has made the overall ecosystem is suffering from this invasive species, which is water hyacinth, and the overall pollution. Apart from that, the hydroelectrical power plant, which has been constructed in this area, is also responsible for local extinction of many species. Next comes Kuladivo National Park. It is in Rajasthan. Earlier, it was called as the Bharatpur Bird Sanctuary. And in this, because of the water shortage, this is the area which is known for tropical type of grasslands. Tropical type of grasslands, unbalanced grazing regime. Can you give me the reason why there is unbalanced grazing regime? Why there is unbalanced grazing regime? Why there is unbalanced grazing regime? Try to remember food chain. Food chain. If I do not have carnivores, will the population of herbivores expand? Explosion of herbivore population, which has resulted into unbalanced grazing regime in this region. The invasive growth of the grass and reducing its suitability for water bird species. These are the reason for, and especially the Siberian crane. Siberian crane, it is responsible for the deterioration of this national park. So very quickly, there are few international organizations which are responsible for the maintenance of wetlands for the birds, etc. First is Wetlands International. Simply take a screenshot of this. Wetlands International and Birdlife International has been asked in your prelims paper about Birdlife International also. So it is a non-profit organization. It was established with the name International Wildfowl Inquiry. It has headquarters in Netherlands. Next is Birdlife International. Again, it has been asked in your previous year papers whenever Ramsar was in news. Now here you have 120 birdlife partners. Second important area is it strives for conservation and is also the official red list authority for birds. It is the official red list authority for birds in IUCN. Third, it identifies important birds and biodiversity areas. Fourth, in India, it is the Bombay National History Society, which is the partner organization. So in India, if you have to declare any bird as vulnerable, threatened, etc., this is your organization. Very quickly take the screenshot. Now, were we reading Central Asian Flyway again and again? In the new Ramsar sites, I was coming across something called as Central Asian Flyway. So Central Asian Flyway is one of the biggest route. It is one of the biggest route which is taken. It starts from the Arctic Ocean and till the Indian Ocean. Till the Indian Ocean, I have this route, and in India, I have so many wetlands which support these birds in their critical stages of life. So it covers continental areas between Arctic Ocean and Indian Ocean. The northernmost breeding grounds are in Siberia, and these birds, they start migrating towards India, West Asia, Maldives, British Indian Ocean territories, and they pass through Indian landmass, especially in the winter season, in the non-breeding winter season. Somoriri was in news because Somoriri supports one of the highest number of birds from the Central Asian flyway. So Somoriri was declared a Ramsar site. Can you give me the area where it is found? Which state or union territory? Ladakh. It is a brackish water lake, just like Pangong So. Pangong So. Somoriri is also a brackish water lake in Ladakh region, and it is a Ramsar site. It is a Ramsar site, and it is the only breeding ground for black-necked cranes outside China. And these birds are endangered. Please take the screenshot. This is what your government has, which is the Wetlands Conservation Management Rules. I am concerned about the key provision, which is decentralization. So now finally, do you notice that different state governments are proposing wetland sites? Different state level governments are proposing different wetland sites. How is it possible? It is possible because now the power has been given to the state governments also for the protection and conservation work. So in India, we have the Wetland Conservation and Management Rule. Now, Ramsar was in news. Have we covered all the important locations from Ramsar? Recent locations. We have revised what is Ramsar Convention. We have also revised what is Montreux's Record. There was something which was coming again and again, that is Central Flyway route. So Central Asian Flyway route also has been done. What is the provision internationally? Birdlife International, Wetland International we have done. So everything and anything related to wetlands we have covered. Now you have to be very smart in identifying the options. All right. Now you know at least that you have covered everything related to wetlands. Now eliminating of the options is your intelligence. All right. Now, three bodies which are used for surveys in India. Why have I taken it up? Have we covered a forest survey yesterday? We have covered a forest survey yesterday. So apart from the forest survey, you have two more survey bodies, which is the botanical survey, which is for the plant or wild plants or flowers. And the second is the zoological survey, which uses ENVIS, which is Environmental Information System. Now, all of these, number of tigers in this area, number of birds in this area, elephants in this area, lions in this area, which is the organization which does the survey? Zoological Survey of India. Zoological Survey of India. So please note down the name of the bodies. Here simply write plants, all the animals, and forest cover. The forest cover. Actually, this is an important publication by the Convention on Biodiversity, which is Global Biodiversity Outlook. Convention of Biodiversity is the first convention which was formed for biodiversity. Is my convention for biodiversity part of Rio Summit? All right. So these are, you had three conventions: UNFCCC, UNCCD, and UNCBD. Now coming to the important locations in news, did we come across Patkai? Did we come across Dehing Patkai Wildlife Sanctuary, which is also called as the Amazon of the East? It is also called as the Amazon of the East. It is in news. Why there is a concern? The concern is for coal and oil mining exploration in this region. Coal and oil mining exploration. Earlier, there was a national park in news, but they asked about the river from there. So, river is important. Dehing is the name of the river which flows through this area, and Patkai are the hills. Patkai are the hills. It has three parts: Jaipur, Upper Dehing River, and Dirok Rainforest. Dirok Rainforest, which is part of the Dehing Patkai Elephant Reserve. What are the important animals? These are the important animals. You have Malayan sun bear, binturong, crab-eating mongoose, marbled cat, golden cat, fishing cat, clouded leopard. Then you have barking deer, Assamese macaque, capped langur, tree shrew, and the hulok gibbon. Hulock gibbon. Hulock gibbon is the only ape. Is the only ape found in India. Hulock gibbon is the only ape found in India. Only ape found in India. This is the region where I have the Dehing Patkai Wildlife Sanctuary. Please take the screenshot of this. Please take the screenshot of this. These are the important details about wildlife sanctuary, national parks and community reserves. Chaliye, let us very quickly, I'll sit on the side so that you can read it very quickly. In the wildlife sanctuary, is human activity or human interaction allowed? Are the human activities allowed? All right. These are allowed in the sanctuaries which are given in the Wildlife Protection Act of 1972. I can declare any area as wildlife sanctuary under the Wildlife Protection Act 1972. Can my state government declare any area as wildlife sanctuary? Can state declare wildlife sanctuary? Yes, the state can declare wildlife sanctuary. Now coming to national park. Do you allow human activity in national park? You do allow human activity in the national park, but not in the core area. So if you say, is human activity allowed? The answer would be no, but there are few activities which are permitted by the wildlife wardens, but no activity shall be allowed inside the core area of the national park. Now, where is the core area of the national park? I'll give you two statements. Statement one says, generally no human activity is permitted inside national park. B statement is, no human activity in any form or any way is allowed in a national park of the indigenous communities. Forest Right Acts of indigenous communities, in which the forest warden has been allowed to provide to allow the indigenous communities for, let's say, collection of wood in order to avoid the human wild conflict, because anyways they were using the forest goods. Again, two statements. First is, no human activity is generally allowed in a national park. Second statement, no human activity under any condition is allowed in a national park. Which will be correct statement? A. Do we make a difference now? All right, you have to integrate the Forest Rights Act also. Now, next is Community Reserve and Conservation Reserve. Again, Wildlife Protection Act. Okay, one more thing. Can state government declare national park? Can state government also declare national park? This is a confusion. Read again. Second statement, national parks. The Wildlife Protection Act of 1972 also gives state government power to declare certain areas as national park. All right. So also, ideally, national parks are declared by the central government, but the state government can also declare national park. Does it sound like concurrent list? ठीक है, याद रखेंगे वैसे. चलिए. Community reserve or conservation reserve, again, under which act? Wildlife Protection Act of 1972. Now, what are these reserves? These are basically the buffer zones or the connectors or the migration corridors between established national parks, wildlife sanctuaries, and many parts of these lands are privately owned also. Such areas are designated as conservation areas if they are inhabited or completely owned by Government of India but used for subsistence of communities. When I read these two things along with the Forest Rights Act, can I now make scope for some human activity in national park? All right. Coming to tiger reserves. Tiger reserves have core or critical tiger habitat. Is anybody allowed or any human activity allowed in the core area? No. Here there is a big no. In the core or critical tiger habitat, no human activity is allowed. You have a separate authority which is National Tiger Conservation Authority. It has a buffer area. Will human activity be allowed in the buffer area? Will some human activity be allowed in the buffer area? Yes. In buffer area, some human activity will be allowed. Next comes the marine protection area. Marine protection area, biosphere reserves. Again, biosphere reserves are designated by UNESCO. Biosphere reserves are designated by UNESCO. These are also divided into core, buffer and transition zone. Core, buffer and transition zone. Then you have the bird sanctuaries. Bird sanctuaries. Have you taken the screenshot? Then you have the special agricultural zone. Special agricultural zone. It was specially for the Kaveri region. For the Kaveri region, the Kaveri Delta was declared as special protected special agricultural zone to avoid the oil exploration, because it is one very important agricultural area. It is called as the state's rice bowl. Rice bowl, and it also has religious sentiment attached to it. Please attempt this question very fast. So I have these biogeographical zones. Biogeographical zones. When it comes to India, the Himalayan region is between two biogeographical zones, that is Palearctic and Indo-Malayan. But when I talk about India in general, can I say that India is at the junction of Indo-Malayan, Palearctic and Afrotropical biogeographic zone? So if the question is asked in a twisted way, it is actually three biogeographical zones which affect the overall biodiversity of India. Makes sense or not? Does it make sense to you or not? If we are only talking about Himalayas, then two. If we are only talking about Western Ghats, then these two. But the entire biodiversity of India, then it is these three. So, do you know why this question was asked? Because Ascot Wildlife Sanctuary was in news, and Ascot Wildlife Sanctuary was in news for snow leopard. Snow leopard program has been started by the government of Uttarakhand, and Ascot Wildlife Sanctuary is important, but it also houses musk deer, which is only found in areas which are above 4,500 to 5,000 meters. So Gangotri National Park, I understand, will be at a height, but to club it with the Ascot Wildlife Sanctuary, because many people will not know where is Kishanpur Wildlife Sanctuary. Fourth is out of question. So there won't be much debate on it. All right. This is about which of these will have the largest critical tiger habitat region. This was also a very tricky question, but here the idea was not to know that which will have critical tiger habitat, but to have an idea which one will be bigger in size. Recently in ISFR report also, and apart from that also, Nagarjun Sagar Srisailam is combination of 2 to 3 conservation areas. It is a huge conservation area. Corbett is one of the smallest tiger reserves. That goes out of question. Ranthambore again is a national park which is not part of any other wildlife. So whenever you see, jaise Patkai Dehing, that it is part of this wildlife sanctuary, that wildlife sanctuary, this elephant corridor, I should have an idea. It will automatically become a larger area. Does the logic come to your head? It will obviously become a larger area. Nagarjun Sagar Srisailam is part of 4 to 5 conservation effort. Hence, even if I did not know, I could have come to the conclusion. All I'm trying is have that approach. When you read these things, have that approach. All right. I want to do few species and then we'll come back to this. All right. Do we understand what is biodiversity hotspots? What are biodiversity hotspots? These are the two conditions. That they should contain at least 1,500 species of vascular plants, and they have to be endemic, and it should have lost more than 70% of the original native habitat. So one, it should be rich, and two, it should be deteriorated. If I want to remember hotspot, I should remember it by two things. Has to be rich and deteriorated, and rich in vegetation, because I'm talking about vascular plants here. I'm not talking about the overall biodiversity. Do you notice? Do you notice? I'm more concerned about the vascular plants here. So these are the two criteria. How many? This, if you want, you can take a screenshot, which is some data about the biodiversity hotspots. So in India, how many biodiversity hotspots do we have? 4. Right? We have 4 biodiversity hotspots. India ranks 4th in Asia. India ranks 4th in Asia and 10th in the world for its biodiversity. I have 4 biodiversity hotspots. Generally, because of different national parks and biosphere reserve, etc., I still have an idea about the eastern Himalayas and the western Ghats. I will be telling you the important species of Andaman and Nicobar and Indo-Burma region. Indo-Burma region. All right. So we'll start with Andaman and Nicobar, and you will see a lot of previous year questions from this region. So Andaman and Nicobar, I want you to be very quick with this. All right. Andaman and Nicobar Island shelters species such as whales, dolphins, dugong. Do I see a lot of question on dugong? Saltwater crocodile, hornbills, marine turtles, seashells, including trochus species. Andaman recently added, yes, if you want to say, but it is part of the biodiversity hotspot of India, the 4 biodiversity hotspot. We have 4 biodiversity hotspots. Andaman is for 2 reasons. One is the endemism, Alok. See, Sunda land is still biodiversity hotspot. But if I want to talk only about India, if you talk about the global biodiversity hotspots, Alok, it is still Sunda land. Andaman is part of the Sunda land. Nicobar Island was there, but now you have Andaman and Nicobar Islands as the biodiversity hotspot according to India. According to India. But is Sundaland still biodiversity hotspot? Yes. The answer to that is yes. All right. Now, what are the species which are especially under stress? Species such as sea cucumbers, seashells, sharks, marine turtles, saltwater crocodiles. This especially is a highly smuggled item. Sea cucumbers are highly smuggled items. This particular biodiversity hotspot and Indo-Myanmar is extremely important. Reason being, this, of course, because of the endemism and everything, and because of the whole crisis in Myanmar, the biodiversity there has suffered a lot. So it is under a lot of stress. All right. Now, I am having a lot of pressure due to exploitation and due to foreign fishing and poachers. Foreign fishing and poachers. Please either take a screenshot of this or note it down. Now, there are few. I'm saying I have only covered those which are important for exams. So there are few endemic species such as Narcondum hornbill. Narcondum hornbill, which is extremely important. And its habitat is restricted to Lone Island. Then I have Nicobar megapode. This is a bird that builds the nest on the ground. Right? The island comprises only 0.25% of the geographical area, but has more than 11,000 species. It also has wide variety of coral species. Which are scleractinian in nature, which are hard and stony corals. They are found in the island ecosystem, and they are also protected under Schedule 1 of the Wildlife Protection Act. You can take a screenshot of this. Now, these are few important animals. We'll revise them very quickly. First is Nicobar shrew. Again, I'm saying, in order to remember different types of animals, always try to remember the critically endangered one. They are less in number. Since they are critically endangered, they are important. And then the animals which are in use. You cannot remember all the endangered and vulnerable. There are too many. Critically endangered are comparatively less. So we will follow that suit here. Nicobar tree shrew, as you can see here, it is a small mole-like mammal. It is critically endangered. Then I have long-tailed macaque. Lion-tailed macaque is in which region? Lion-tailed macaque. This is long-tailed macaque. Macaques are variety of monkeys. No, Sushmita, lion-tailed macaque are not only in Assam, but in Nilgiri region, in the Western Ghats, In the southern peninsula region, I have lion-tailed macaque. Silent Valley. Silent Valley National Park is known for lion-tailed macaque. There has been previous year question on Silent Valley also and separately on lion-tailed macaque also. All right. Then I have dugong. Dugong has also been asked in the examination. So dugong is another important animal which is found here. Then I have Indo-Pacific humpback dolphin. These are both vulnerable. I have Andaman shrew. This is what dugong looks like. Indo-Pacific humpback dolphin. Dugong is a vegetarian fish. I'll show you that also. Then I have Andaman shrew, Jenkins shrew, and Nicobar shrew. Same. So I've got 3 shrews which are critically endangered. 3 shrews which are critically endangered. Andaman shrew, Jenkins shrew, and Nicobar shrew. Chaliye, thank you so much. You were a wonderful class. Let me know if you have any issues. Thank you so much. Have a good day.